What would you do if you found this in a forgotten basement? Because it describes in minute detail what happens to you after your heart stops beating. This isn't the afterlife. It's a 49-day transformational journey that challenges everything you believe. Everything you've been told about death is wrong. Death is not the end, not a void, and not a mystery to be left to faith or speculation. For over 1,000 years, in a forbidden manuscript, there exists a detailed map explaining exactly what happens during the first 49 days after death. This ancient text is the Tibetan Book of the Dead, once reserved only for the most enlightened minds, those capable of facing the truth without fear. It reveals that the moment of death is not the final breath, but the beginning of a test that determines whether you can escape the cycle of death and rebirth, or fall back into reincarnation, blind and unprepared. But why was this book hidden? Why would someone try to keep this knowledge from the world? Perhaps because knowing the truth about the afterlife would force us to live more consciously now. Perhaps because understanding that death is not the end, but a powerful beginning, would change everything. No one knows for sure who wrote the manuscript. What we have are fragments, legends, stories lost in tattered old diaries, and whispers distorted among monks. What the book teaches echoes through many spiritual traditions, and in the stories of those who've visited the other side and returned. But what if the manuscript is real? Stay until the end of the video. We'll explore day by day what happens after your final breath, because the next step is the first day, the separation from the body. You will feel light, detached, as if awakening from a dream. There will be no heartbeat, no breath, but you will still be conscious. You will know something has changed, but your mind will struggle to accept it. If you've ever had an out-of-body experience, this moment will feel strange, yet familiar. Only this time, there's no way back. This moment is often described as a strange liberation. Your soul sees your own motionless body, sees the people around you crying or trying to revive you, but you can no longer interact with them. Then a brilliant, blinding light appears, so powerful your existence seems to dissolve into it. This is what the Tibetan Book of the Dead calls the clear light of reality. If you recognize it and fully let go to merge with it, you will escape the cycle of death and rebirth, achieve instant enlightenment, and be freed forever. This is the ultimate moment of liberation, and it happens the instant you die. But almost no one recognizes it. Why? Because we are programmed to fear the unknown. The soul panics, clinging to memories, identity, and unfulfilled desires. Instead of embracing the light, it recoils. And as soon as fear takes over, the illusions begin. This is where most souls become lost. Instead of realizing death is a chance for liberation, they fall into confusion, seeking comfort in the familiar. And the mind responds by projecting the world they once knew, recreating familiar faces and voices. Some even see religious figures they once worshipped in life, not realizing these are merely reflections of their own subconscious beliefs. If they understood the truth that none of it is real, that they are being tested, they could let go. But instead, they go deeper into these illusions, falling into the intermediate state, the realm between death and rebirth. The Tibetan Book of the Dead teaches that awareness is the key, that those who have prepared for this moment can pass through the illusions and be liberated. But for the unprepared, for those still clinging to life, what comes next is unavoidable. They will experience the next 48 days in the bardo state, encountering visions that either guide them to enlightenment or trap them in yet another cycle of rebirth. From the second to the fourth day, the soul is swept into a subtler, yet even deeper vortex, the realization that it has died. That may seem obvious, but to a newly released soul, it is anything but. At this stage, the soul still carries the memory of the physical world, It tries to return home to loved ones and familiar places, trying to speak, trying to be seen, but no one responds, no one hears. Gradually, the soul realizes this is not a dream, this is death. And even then, the mind resists. It clings to its identity, refusing to accept the inevitable. It seeks comfort, logical explanations, anything to hold on. That is why this is a crucial time for prayers and chants to help awaken the soul. During this period, prayers, elevated thoughts, and rituals performed by the living have a profound impact. They create bridges of light between worlds, facilitating the soul's awakening. From the 5th to the 14th day, the Tibetan Book of the Dead warns that every experience in the Bardo state is a reflection of the soul's own consciousness. There is no external judgment, only inner confrontation. This is when the journey becomes dangerous, for the more fearful the soul is, the stronger the illusions become. The intermediate realm is not merely a transition space, it is a mirror that exposes everything the soul has avoided. And for most, that reflection is unbearable. And now the true test begins. What the soul sees next will determine its fate. At first, the visions appear divine. The soul beholds celestial realms, radiant light, and beings filled with compassion. These majestic forms do not speak, but their presence radiates an infinite peace. Some who have had near-death experiences describe them as angels, enlightened masters, even gods. But in truth, they are not saviors or judges. They are manifestations of the soul's highest potential, reflections of its own purest light. If the soul recognizes this, it can transcend. But to recognize it requires clarity, and clarity is hard to attain when the mind is veiled in fear. For those who spent their lives chasing desires, fearing death, or clinging to the ego, the illusions begin to distort. The luminous beings remain, but their forms begin to shift. The soul sees them flickering, twisting, as if reality itself is unraveling. Then they vanish, replaced by terrifying visions. The Tibetan Book of the Dead describes this moment in terrifying detail. As the days pass in the Bardo, the comforting figures disappear, giving way to dark, grotesque beings. These entities are more terrifying than anything the soul has ever experienced. They roar with inhuman sounds, their faces twisted with rage and chaos. Some have multiple heads, countless arms or eyes blazing like fire. They appear as demons, executioners, or relentless pursuers, seeding terror in the unprepared soul. This is when most souls panic. They flee, plead, scream, but there is no escape because there is nowhere to run. These horrifying figures are not true enemies. They do not exist outside. They are projections, shadows cast by unresolved fears, buried guilt, and suppressed regrets. Every deceitful, cruel, or selfish act in the previous life takes shape in the intermediate realm. They appear as if attacking from the outside, but in truth, they are self-created. The terror is born from within. And the most dangerous part, the more the soul resists, the stronger the illusion becomes. Fear feeds the illusion. Terror gives it power. The only way out is not to run, but to realize. Souls who recognize the truth that these beings are merely shadows of their own mind will see them vanish instantly, like mist burned away by the sun. The illusion dissolves the moment the soul stops believing in it. But few understand this in time. They only see the nightmare, not the lesson hidden within. From the 15th to the 21st day, the soul enters one of the most impactful and transformative moments, the encounter with itself. This is the decisive phase. All actions in the past life are judged by the consciousness of the soul itself. It sees clearly what it has done, both good and evil, and there is no escape. Practiced souls will find this a moment to face the truth with serenity, but those who lived in deception and hatred will be pulled into a whirlpool of pain by the weight of their karma. There is no judge, no divine court, no higher being determining your fate. What happens next is far more profound and terrifying. The soul is pulled backward through time, reliving every action, every thought, every emotion it ever generated. But this is not memory, this is total immersion. The soul doesn't just recall what it did in life, it must fully re-experience everything. Every kind act, every cruel behavior, every secret decision now felt completely, not only from the soul's own perspective, but from the point of view of everyone who was affected. If you caused pain to someone or some living being, you will feel that pain. If you brought joy, you will also feel that joy. But there are no filters, no explanations or justifications. Everything is raw, immediate, and undeniable. This is not punishment, this is truth. The soul is not judged by an outside force, it judges itself. Tibetan scriptures explain that for most people, this experience is excruciating. In life, we often avoid responsibility, justify our mistakes, bury our guilt. But in death, there is nowhere to hide. You are not allowed to explain your reasons. You cannot argue or defend. You can only feel. For some, this experience is blissful. Those who lived with compassion, honesty, and wisdom are flooded with a deep peace as every positive action returns like waves of light. But for others, this is torment beyond anything they ever imagined. Not because they are punished, but because the weight of their own actions presses down on them. What's even more astonishing is this. According to Tibetan teachings, this life review does not only affect the past, it determines the future. Once the soul has relived the totality of its existence, it is no longer neutral. It has been deeply conditioned by the emotions it just re-experienced. If the soul leaves this self-assessment, filled with guilt, regret, or attachment, it will be pulled back into the cycle of rebirth. The greater the burden, the lower the realm of rebirth. Some are reborn in suffering, poverty, or hardship, not because they were judged by an external force, but because their own state of mind dragged them there. Unconsciously, the soul chooses that path. That is why the life review is not just a reflection. It is a test to see whether the soul can let go. Can it accept the past without clinging to it? Can it release the burdens of regret, fear, and unfulfilled desire? Those who pass that test step into liberation. Those who fail are pulled back into another life, another body, another cycle of suffering. That's why spiritual traditions emphasize the need to prepare for death long before it arrives. Because when that moment comes, when the great mirror is placed before you, what you see is no longer in your control. It has already been written by the life you lived, and from days 22 to 35, the determination of rebirth destiny begins. The final test. The soul now faces the ultimate choice: break the cycle of rebirth or be reborn. The illusions have played their games. The soul has faced its past, relived every joy, every sorrow, every hidden thought that shaped its existence. Now, after weeks of drifting through the in-between world, the moment of decision arrives. This is the final test, the one that determines all. In the Tibetan Book of the Dead, this phase is described as the most crucial and difficult moment. The soul stands at a crossroads. It must make a choice: either recognize the illusion and attain eternal liberation, or give in to desire and return to the cycle of rebirth. But the problem is, most people don't even realize they are making a choice. By this time, the illusions have grown too powerful, too convincing, that the soul almost forgets it is in the bardo state. The visions now take on a different form, no longer frightening gods or fragmented hallucinations. They become familiar, pleasant, even seductive. From days 36 to 49, The phase of shaping the next life begins. The intermediate realm comes to an end, and rebirth approaches. The Tibetan Book of the Dead warns that in these final days, the soul will be offered a way out. But it is a trap. The soul will see images of loved ones calling it back, familiar places appearing, luring it with warmth and nostalgia. The soul feels a deep longing, a pull towards something known. But these are not mere illusions. They are glimpses of the next life that the soul is about to enter. If by day 49 the soul has not attained liberation, it will be forced to reincarnate according to its strongest karmic pull. The karmic forces have begun shaping the next incarnation, weaving the conditions for the soul's return. If the soul clings to these images, if it allows itself to be drawn in, it is immediately swept into a new body, a new life. A loop of forgetting begins again. Rebirth happens instantly. The process is automatic. As soon as the soul clings to a desire, a fear, or an attachment, it is drawn into a new womb, a new reality, with no memory of the choice it just made. The Tibetan Book of the Dead describes this moment as a plunge into unconsciousness, a deep forgetting where the previous life dissolves and a new one begins. It's like waking up from a dream with no memory at all of where you just were. And so the cycle begins again. Birth, suffering, death, and return to the intermediate realm. But for a rare few who are prepared, this final test is entirely different. Those who understand what is happening can see through the illusion. They recognize the visions as mere projections, tricks of the mind designed to trap them. They do not cling to the comfort of old attachments, nor do they run from fear. They remain still, awake, and let go. And in that precise moment, something miraculous happens. The illusion collapses, karmic forces lose their power, the pull of reincarnation fades, and the soul, free from all bonds and fear, escapes the cycle completely. This is what the Tibetan masters call liberation. It is not a place, not a heaven, nor an afterlife, as most people imagine. It is simply awakening, the realization of the true nature of reality, a state beyond illusion, beyond duality, beyond suffering. Yet almost no one achieves this state because it requires something most people are never prepared for: awareness at the exact moment of death, the ability to see the trap before it closes. And it is for this reason that these teachings were hidden for over 1,000 years. Because if people truly understood the truth about death, everything would change. The next stage of this journey is not just about what happens after death, but also why this knowledge has been forbidden for centuries. For over 1,000 years, these teachings were locked away, reserved only for the highest spiritual practitioners, hidden from the masses, censored by religious institutions. Even today, most people have never heard of them, and there's a reason for that. This text is believed to have been transmitted by Padmasambhava, Guru Rinpoche, in the 8th century. He later concealed it to prevent it from being lost or misused during a time when the world was not yet ready for its teachings. Centuries later, in the 14th century, a Tibetan named Karma Lingpa rediscovered the text, said to have found it hidden in a cave in the Himalayas. From that point onward, the Tibetan Book of the Dead began to be shared more widely in funerary rites and teachings on death and rebirth. The Tibetan Book of the Dead was never meant for the ordinary mind. These teachings are profoundly deep and can easily be misunderstood by those who are not yet prepared. They speak not only of death, but also reveal the true nature of reality, the ego and illusion. This act of concealment is seen as a way to protect the teachings until the right time arrives. And it doesn't stop there. Modern science is beginning to confirm certain aspects of these ancient teachings. Near-death experiences are filled with astonishingly similar descriptions. People say they see a pure light, relive their entire life, feel an overwhelming sense of peace or an intense terror, depending on the actions they took while alive. Even advanced quantum physics is beginning to suggest that consciousness is not confined to the brain, that it may persist beyond death, and that it might operate outside the limits of time and space. For centuries, this knowledge was dismissed as superstition, but now the line between ancient wisdom and modern science is starting to blur. So why don't most people know about this? Because society is designed to distract you, to make you focus on the material world, on temporary pleasures, on meaningless fears, so that you constantly chase money, status, and recognition. And when death finally arrives, you're completely unprepared. The biggest lie ever told about death is this, that it is a mystery, but it's not. The Tibetan masters mapped it out over 1,000 years ago. They understood that the first 49 days after death follow an exact structure, that the mind is what shapes the afterlife, and that only awakening is the key to liberation. Yet almost no one prepares for this, because the real secret is, if you are not awake while alive, you will not be awake after death. And that means the cycle of reincarnation will repeat over and over again. But for those who understand the truth, for those who begin to prepare right now, there is another path. Look around. How many people spend any time in life thinking about death, let alone preparing for it? Society has been programmed to make us fear death, ignore it, pretend it doesn't exist. We distract ourselves with work, entertainment, money, and meaningless pleasures, while deep down, we know that one day the moment will come. And when it does, we will be lost, like billions of souls before us, blind, confused, and falling into the same trap. Because the real test does not happen after death, it's happening right now. The intermediate realm is not a place after death, it's a state of consciousness. The illusions that deceive the soul after death are already deceiving us while we're alive. The fear that makes souls flee terrifying illusions, it's the same fear that controls us every day. The attachment that draws souls back into rebirth is the same clinging to money, fame, and fleeting pleasures in life. The blindness to illusions, it's the same blindness that makes us believe everything we're taught, never questioning the reality in front of us. If you are not awake now, you will not be awake after death. That's why so few ever escape. The Tibetan Book of the Dead teaches this. The habits, fears, and desires that shape our daily life are the very things that shape what happens after we die. Those who live in ignorance will die in ignorance. Those who are controlled by fear in life will be controlled by fear in death. Those who chase illusions in life will continue to chase them even after the body dissolves. This cycle is relentless. It is perfectly designed to keep us trapped in the loop. And the worst part? We are doing it to ourselves. The 49-day journey in the intermediate state is not just a matter of belief. It is a map for guiding the soul back to its source. Understanding it allows us to live more mindfully and to prepare for death, not with fear, but with wisdom and compassion. That is the message this video aims to convey, that every death is an opportunity for awakening, and that every soul can save itself if prepared, and those still alive, if they understand, can become a guiding light for the departed, helping them cross the darkness of the intermediate realm. If you've watched this video to the end, leave a comment. I understand. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to support the channel. Thank you.